Alors, comme il est 13h.
As it is 1:59, pursuant to the order adopted on April 3rd, 2017, this is deemed to have been voted, and the vote is deemed deferred until later today at the expiry of time provided for oral questions.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Ajax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our Great Lakes are indeed one of our greatest natural resources. 20% of the world's surface fresh water exists in our Great Lakes, and it represents, for 10 million Canadians, our drinking water, and for 25 million Americans, their drinking water. It's why I'm so proud in this budget that the government has committed $70.5 million over the next 5 years for our Great Lakes. And I want to highlight for the community of Ajax and for Durham just how important that is, and that we look at our watersheds. In our case, the Carruthers and Duffins watersheds, but Durham is home to some of the most dynamic watersheds in the country, and how important they are in cleaning out water and remediating that water before it gets into Lake Ontario and playing an essential role in water quality. I'm proud of the government's commitment, and I'm proud that Ajax is home to such an important resource.
Honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tax on tax. Sounds like a taxpayer's worst nightmare. But this government is the boogeyman. Budget 2016 projected GST revenues to increase by 21% over 5 years. Budget 2017 projects GST revenues to increase by 24%. The reason? Well, when the Prime Minister said carbon taxes would stay with the provinces and territories, he forgot to tell Canadians the GST collected on carbon taxes will go to Ottawa. I'm proud to be working with the Vernon City Councillor Bob Spears, promoting petition E713 to fight this tax on tax plan. I also thank the member from Langley Aldergrove for introducing his private member's bill C342 to end the Liberals' tax on taxes. While this government searches for ways to extract taxes, Canadians can count on Conservatives to stand up for what is right. Help us fight tax on tax. Support e-petition 713 and Bill C342. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pontiac.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate all of the volunteers who participated in a day of fundraising for Maison des Collines on March 15th. The steering committee has been working very hard on the Maison des Collines project, designed to build a palliative care center with 6 beds for our region. This center will serve patients, members, their families, and the entire community. Thanks to a partnership with Vieux de Lutte, 620 meals were served and over $20,000 raised in donations. Congratulations to the volunteers, Denis Joannis and others, as well as the organizing committee in its entirety. Thank you to everyone who made a donation to Maison des Collines.
Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, last break week I took the opportunity to go door knocking and canvass constituents in my great riding of Vancouver Kingsway. I visited one of the many cooperative housing complexes in Vancouver, the Still Creek Caslow Gardens Co-op. Folks raised a variety of issues with me, ranging from climate change to childcare to public transit. But by far the most common was the pressing need for affordable housing and the solution that cooperative housing offers as a proven model of providing quality homes in a community setting at reasonable prices. Still Creek and Caslow Gardens are shining examples, with spacious 2-, 3-, and 4-bedroom units grouped around common green spaces. They provide safe play areas for children, foster close neighbours, and mix residents of every age, income level, family type, and culture. Co-op housing is a fabulous way to provide stable, affordable, and attractive housing. I call on the federal government to invest land and funds to bring this outstanding model to as many Canadians as possible, as soon as possible.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Today is one of the best days of my life because since this morning I've been accompanying on Parliament Hill Mr. Sébastien Lepierre, who on January 9, 2017 became the first Canadian to reach the South Pole on a solo expedition. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, traveling by ski with all of your equipment 1,200 kilometers, 42 days and 5 hours, braving violent winds, temperatures of minus 50 alone. People in the Quebec City region are fortunate to benefit from the courage of this man who works as a firefighter. Like Mr. Lapierre, I'm from the Saguenay region. Both of us shared time in the cadets when we were younger, and we both have been strong promoters of healthy lifestyles. Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate Mr. Lapierre on behalf of all Canadians.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, last week my first great-grandchild was born. My granddaughter Stephanie and her husband Justin welcomed Emma Rose Muzz into this world. Baby Emma Rose had some internal problems and her birth needed close monitoring. Like so many rural Canadian families, her parents stayed at the Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver. Baby Emma Rose is doing fine. 15 Ronald McDonald houses across Canada give families a place to stay, close to a hospital where their child is being treated. Ronald McDonald family rooms are located at strategic hospitals, giving families a place to rest and recharge. McDonald's supports these facilities, Mr. Speaker, by contributions from every Happy Meal it serves across Canada and through McHappy Days. From my family and all Canadians, I want to say thank you to the Ronald McDonald Foundation for the help, compassion, and family support they give to rural Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, last week I visited Thunder Bay's own Sleeping Giant Brewery Company and learned about their campaign to support women in business and the arts. On International Women's Day, the company invited women to come in and brew their Campanero beer. $1 for every Campanero beer will be donated to start an education bursary for female entrepreneurs in memory of Janine Ross Armstrong, who was tragically taken from us all far too soon. Janine contributed a great deal to the community of Thunder Bay, and this is the start of what will become an annual tradition to honor her. Thank you, Sleeping Giant Brewery Company, for giving back to our community and supporting women in Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Don Valley East.
Mr. Speaker, on April 1st, I had the honour of hosting a town hall on our government's national housing strategy with a member for Spadina, Fort York. Les gens sont très
People are very grateful for the historic $11.2 billion investment in budget 2017 for affordable housing, because they're having more and more difficulty affording housing in Toronto and Don Valley East. The government listened to people, the provinces, and the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. We hope that the provinces and municipalities will move quickly to take advantage of this investment.
We're very happy with our government's commitment to improving housing across the country. My constituents know that the National Housing Strategy will have a positive impact on not only millions of Canadians, but on their neighbourhoods and communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I invite colleagues to join me in welcoming the Canadian Chiropractic Association, whose members have come to Parliament today to meet with decision makers and raise awareness of the role that back pain and other musculoskeletal conditions play in Canada's opioid crisis. Currently, Mr. Speaker, Canada is the second highest consumer of prescription opioids. Every year, over 2,000 Canadians die from the overuse of opioids, which accounts for 50% of all annual drug-related deaths. Canada's new draft opioid prescribing guidelines call for all health providers to prioritize non-pharmacological alternatives before making the decision to prescribe. With back pain as a key driver of opioid prescribing and excellent evidence supporting the use of clinical alternatives as first-line therapy, Canada's chiropractors are here to talk about a better approach to pain management for Canadians. Canadian chiropractors, as spine, muscle, and nervous system experts, play an important role in helping relieve the burden of back pain and MSK conditions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share my thoughts and concerns, and indeed those of all members of this House, for the communities of Manitoba affected by the flooding of the Red and Assiniboine rivers. To the First Nation communities impacted, our first priority is ensuring that you are safe, secure, and out of the path of floodwaters. Over the weekend, with the aid of the Canadian Red Cross, community members impacted by rising waters were evacuated to Winnipeg, Brandon, and other local centres until levels recede. Mr. Speaker, officials are in contact with the communities in the region and are providing additional support for ongoing flood preparation. The thoughts of all Canadians are with the residents of Manitoba affected by the flooding, as well as with the first responders who have been working to keep them safe. As Manitobans, we are resilient and have a strong tradition of community and cooperation.
The member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
It's exciting to recognize Canada's 18 world-class port authorities in recognition of Western Hemisphere Ports Day, because our ports create 250,000 direct and indirect jobs and are responsible for $400 billion in trade each and every year. Half of that, $200 billion, flows through Vancouver, creating $6.1 billion in wages for Canadians. Recently, a Deloitte report benchmarking European maritime hubs against global leading maritime hubs named Vancouver for the first time in our history as a global giant. Vancouver is becoming a maritime investment hub and a competitive jurisdiction for maritime companies to locate jobs and invest. Mr. Speaker, Canada is a Pacific nation. It is and always has been a trading nation, and our ports benefit Canadians each and every day. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, Sunday night was the Juno Gala, which recognizes the efforts of Canadian artists who stand out and distinguish themselves in music, and it shines a bright light on Canadian culture. I congratulate all of the winners, and above all, I thank the Minister of Heritage for her passionate, heartfelt, and emotional speech in French. Now, that's what I would have liked to have been able to say today here in this House, but I can't. What I must say is this: the Minister of Official Languages, oh, no, that title was taken away from her, didn't bother to speak French. A Quebec minister who boasts about defending Canada's 2 languages failed in her duties and obligations. What a missed opportunity. Defending French is just a screen covering empty words. Each time she speaks publicly, she must do so in both.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the St. Petersburg Metro was the scene of a terrible bomb attack that killed 14 people and injured many more. Many remain in critical condition. Mr. Speaker, we strongly condemn the use of violence in any form. Canada is home to over 550,000 Canadians of Russian descent and with Russian ties. I rise today to share our deepest condolences with the families and friends of those killed in this cowardly attack, as well as our thoughts and prayers with all those injured, and of course, with the Russian people. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Starting today, the City of Hamilton and Vibrant Communities Canada are hosting the 3rd Annual Poverty Reduction Summit. The summit will bring together major business leaders, community organizers, mayors, municipal, provincial, and federal governments, Indigenous leaders, and most importantly, persons who have experienced poverty. We all know that one of the most important pieces of poverty reduction is safe, affordable housing. There are 5,700 families on the waiting list for affordable housing in Hamilton. A recent United Nations committee called on the government to substantially increase the availability of affordable housing. In Hamilton, the 5,700 families, this is unacceptable. I am encouraged by the government's promise to fund affordable housing in both Hamilton and across the country. Let's hope this is a promise they can actually keep. But the funding has to start now and not after the next election. 5,700 families in Hamilton are counting on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Peace River Westmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, spring has sprung and the snow is melting and Alberta is still true blue. The residents of Calgary Heritage and Calgary Mindapore sent a clear message to the Liberal government yesterday. The voters said goodbye to the Liberals' so-called sunny ways, which for many Albertans has only led to darker days, and look ahead with hope in their eyes to many more days of clear blue skies. In yesterday's by-elections, Albertans broke through the buzzwords, ignored the selfies, and took a strong stance against this Liberal government. Albertans clearly rejected the Liberals' massive deficits, reckless spending, and plans for a job-killing carbon tax. I know that running an election is incredibly grueling, and I want to thank Stephanie Kuzy, Bob Benson, and their teams for all their hard work. Bob and Stephanie, congratulations. I know you will both be outstanding representatives for your ridings and a strong voice for the Canadian taxpayer.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The honourable member for Bourassa.
Mr. Speaker, soon 5 new members will join us here on Parliament Hill and the seats in this place. I will take this moment to speak to all the candidates and the campaigns that have been working so hard on behalf of the constituents, to congratulate them for their hard work, their diligence and their commitment to public service.
I too, Mr. Speaker, was elected during a by-election. Like all parliamentarians, we devote a great deal of time and energy to a campaign.
Doors and made phone calls. Thank you to all the candidates who called and listened to the people of the ridings. Thank you.
To our 5 colleagues, including 3 women, who will be sworn in shortly, congratulations. And now let the real work begin.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister claims he's frustrated with Bombardier for using tax dollars to boost the paychecks of their executives. Frustrated. This is his deal. This is actually the Prime Minister's deal. So if he's frustrated with anyone, he should look in the mirror, because he's the one who did the deal with no strings attached. He gave them hundreds of millions of dollars while they were laying off thousands of people. So why is the Prime Minister giving millions of dollars to CEOs and leaving taxpayers with the bill?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the investment that was made, the repayable contribution for $372.5 million was to promote research and development. And the strings were very clear. It will help create 1,300 good quality, high value added jobs, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly what our government is committed to doing. We're focused on innovation. We're focused on the aerospace sector. We want to support the small and medium-sized ecosystem of businesses that are connected with that industry. We are going to continue to invest in this sector and make sure we create good quality, high value added jobs.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did this while he was telling Canadians to send more of their tax dollars to Ottawa. His latest budget nickel and dimes Canadians for everything, from beer to their bus passes. Wow. You know, it would be one thing if we knew that that money was being used to create jobs, or maybe to balance the budget. But instead, part of it is going to Bombardier so they can pay their CEOs millions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, why, with all of this, should the Canadians give one more cent to this Prime Minister? Why should they trust him with their money?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have a plan, and it is working for Canadians. That plan is to make sure that we focus on jobs. And since the member opposite talked about jobs, in the last 7 months, there was 250,000 good quality jobs created from coast to coast to coast. 900 jobs at Bell Helicopter plus an additional 100. GE Welland, 220 jobs. Thomson's and Reuter, 1,500 jobs. GM Canada, up to 1,000 engineer jobs. And most recently, Mr. Speaker, at Ford, 800 good quality jobs were secured because of this government's investment in the automotive sector.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, how can this Minister or the Prime Minister continue to defend this deal? They gave public money to a company who is giving millions of dollars in bonuses to their executives. while they're laying off 14,000 people. How can he possibly continue to defend this deal?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we always have and we always will continue to defend the aerospace sector. This sector is so critical to the Canadian economy. It contributes $28 billion to our national economic prosperity. Over 211,000 jobs are connected to the aerospace sector. That is why we made a repayable contribution worth $372.5 million in research and development, which will help secure up to 1,300 good quality jobs. We will never shy away from focusing on investing in Canadians, focusing on supporting the aerospace sector and growing the economy and creating good quality jobs.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, people are shocked by the agreement between Bombardier and the Liberals and the lack of respect for taxpayers. Meanwhile, thousands of jobs, of workers at Bombardier have lost their job. The Prime Minister is responsible for this deal and continues to defend it. How can the Prime Minister give CEOs millions of dollars and stick taxpayers with the bill? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I understand the concerns of Canadians. At the same time, it's very important for our government to support the aerospace sector. That is why we've invested $370 million in research and development. This investment will create jobs and help small and medium-sized businesses, Mr. Speaker. This is a priority for our government and still is.
Mr. Speaker, the arrogance is staggering when it comes to this issue, but now we're seeing it here in Parliament, where the Prime Minister has decided that question period in Parliament is nothing more than an inconvenience for him. He doesn't like the idea of being questioned or being held to account for his actions. That's why he is now trying to use his majority power to ram through changes to the rules of this House. And the only purpose for those changes is to make his life easier. Why is the Prime Minister so scared of the accountability to face the accountability that every other Prime Minister before him had to face?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
During the election campaign, we committed to modernizing Parliament and making it a 21st century workplace. As a direct result of the Harper government's approach to Parliament over 10 years, we promised Canadians we would bring a new approach to Ottawa to ensure that their voices were also heard in this place. In our discussion paper, we put forward some ideas that would bring about this change. I have been meeting with the other House leaders, and I'm hopeful that we can build off these conversations. As promised to Canadians, we are committed to modernizing the House of Commons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Député d'Outremont.
Member for Outremont.
The Prime Minister committed to forming a government that, unlike the Conservatives, would be, quote, open to discussion and debate. He also vowed that he wanted to end the concentration of power initiated by his father. The Liberal proposals include the Prime Minister showing up just once a week. Imagine that. So I'm forced to ask the Government House Leader a question that she'll likely get a lot if the Liberals force through their parliamentary power grab. How does she feel having to cover for the Prime Minister?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
To be serving alongside a Prime Minister and a team that has taken a different approach doing government. I'm proud to stand with a government that has taken on unprecedented levels of public consultations.
Order. Can't hear the answer. We need to hear the answer. Honourable Government House Leader has the floor. Order.
I'm proud to be part of a government that is listening to Canadians and actually responding to the very real challenges that they are facing. In the discussion paper that we released, that I released, it's a conversation worth having. We all know that this place can function better. We know what the previous government's attempts were in this House. We believe that we can improve the conditions of this place so that every member of Parliament has the opportunity to be part of a conversation, to be part of a debate. I will continue to advance and have those important conversations.
The Honourable Member for
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government could simply have said they wouldn't unilaterally change the way our democracy works. But instead, they're fixing to force through this power grab. Do they at least understand the precedent they're setting? Are they actually prepared to abandon the tradition of consensus in order to further their own short-term interests? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I said in English, during the election campaign, we committed to modernize Parliament and make it a 21st century workplace. As a result, in contrast with the Harper approach, we have said that we would bring a new approach to Ottawa and make sure that Canadians' voices were heard here in the House. In our working document, we put forward some ideas to support those changes. We would encourage all members to work together on this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Themselves, there's more news today regarding the Prime Minister's illegal vacation to a private island.
It has come to light that the Liberal government gave taxpayer money to one of the Prime Minister's cronies to cover the costs of a technician on this private island. This payment shows that the rest of the trip was indeed a gift the Prime Minister and several other Liberal cronies accepted. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility for breaking the law? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is constantly in contact with his office and receives information documents both in Canada and abroad. The Prime Minister must always be able to perform his official duties. As was said, the Prime Minister was on a family vacation with a long-standing friend whom he has known for a very long time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Outremont. A long-standing friend that he's known for a long time.
He tried to hide the details of this illegal vacation. When it was revealed, the Ethics Commissioner started not one, but two official investigations. And the Prime Minister continues to claim it's all okay, move along, nothing to see here because the Aga Khan is a close family friend. Well, are Canadians supposed to believe that the trip would have been more inappropriate if they weren't so close?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as has always been the case for previous Prime Ministers, the Prime Minister is always in contact with his office and is routinely provided with necessary resources during all travels, domestically and internationally, and whether on personal or governmental business. The Prime Minister must always be ready to do the important duties that he has as Prime Minister, and this has been the case for this office always. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, while we celebrate our 150th birthday, it's incredible to see a Prime Minister under investigation like he is currently. When they took office, they said they would do things differently, but we're a far cry from there. Sunny ways, transparency, cooperation. We're actually dealing with a parliament. The Liberals want to promote their own self-interest, and that's no way to celebrate our 150th. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Celebrating Canada's 150th anniversary of Confederation. This is a really important year. For the first time in the history of our country, we have gender parity in our cabinet. For the first time in the history of our country, we have a woman in the role of a government house leader. For the first time in our country, we have people working together, a government responding to the very real challenges that Canadians are facing. We will continue to work hard for Canadians. We will continue to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. And I'm very proud of the leadership of this Prime Minister and the work that this government is doing. Thank you, Mr.
Sadly, we still...
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we're in the House of Commons where Canadians elect people to express themselves, and that's the kind of answer we get? The Prime Minister doesn't seem to realize it's our 150th because he's tossing aside everything Prime Ministers previously have done. Never have we seen a Prime Minister show such flagrant disregard and disrespect for our traditions. During the campaign, they said we'd have a deficit of $10 billion and we would balance the books. by 2019, that there would be democratic reform. None of that is happening. They're not walking the talk. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Our top priority is to invest wisely and responsibly in order to strengthen the middle class, grow the economy, and prepare Canadians for today's economy and tomorrow's economy. Over the past 7 months, the economy has created more than 250,000 new jobs, and the number of people on EI has dropped from 7.1 to 6.9%. We're very happy with this progress.
Canadians are outraged and they are expressing their concerns about this Prime Minister's power grab. Even the media has condemned his actions. Today, after question period, we're going to be voting on a motion calling on the Liberals to finally commit to not changing the standing orders unless they have agreement from the opposition parties. Will the Liberals do the right thing and once and for all stop this attempt to ram these changes through? Will they agree to our motion?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I have mentioned time and time again, in the election campaign, we committed to modernizing Parliament and making it a 21st century workplace. As a direct result of the Harper government's approach to Parliament over 10 years, we promised Canadians that we would bring a new approach to Ottawa to ensure that their voices were also heard in this place. We respect the work of the committee. We respect that the Conservatives yesterday wanted to have a debate on standing orders, something we've been asking for quite a long time, rather than discussing the very good budget that we introduced, Budget 2017, that will be helping middle-class families and those working hard to join it. We look forward to working with members opposite. We will continue to work.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's those kind of non-answers that are eroding our democracy. What gives the Prime Minister the right to disrespect Parliament and ram these changes through? What gives him the right to silence anyone who dares criticize him? What gives him the right to trample all over this House of Commons? At a minimum, will he allow his backbenchers a free vote on this motion that affects them so directly, or is he going to trample all over your rights too?
I remind the Honourable Opposition House Leader, of course, to always direct your comments to the Chair. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we encourage all members to have a voice in this House. We encourage them to represent their constituents. That's exactly what we were elected to do. That is not the...
I think the voice we want to encourage is the voice of the person who has the floor, not everybody else's voice. The Honourable Government House Leader has the floor. Let's have a little order.
We will always encourage our members of Parliament to represent their constituents. That's exactly what we were elected to do. That was not the approach of the previous government. We know that the Harper government did not take that approach when dealing in this House. We believe that we can modernize this place. We will continue to work better together. We encourage all members on all sides to have this very important conversation, but we will not give a veto to the Conservatives over our campaign commitments. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, the ethics of the Prime Minister's Bahamian billionaire island holiday bash are getting murkier by the day. We now know that the government reimbursed the Aga Khan for at least one government employee's stay on this private island. Why are government per diems being paid to the Prime Minister's billionaire friend? Will the Prime Minister admit, finally, that his middle-class boasting doesn't wash with when he treats the public purse like his personal piggy bank?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I have answered this question, I will remind the member that what has been the case for previous Prime Ministers, the Prime Minister is always in contact with his office and is routinely provided with necessary resources during all travel, domestically and internationally, and whether on personal or government business. What Canadians have elected this government to do is to deliver on a plan to grow the economy and to create jobs. In the last 7 months, over 250,000 jobs, full-time, good jobs created for Canadians. That's exactly the growth that they are expecting. We will continue to advance that they mandated us to.
The member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
The Prime Minister brought a government technician with him on his trip to the Aga Khan's billionaire island. We also know that the employees' per diems were paid out to the AgaCon, which is, of course, flying in the face of accountability. Did the employee actually do any work for the taxpayers? That's what we want to know. Are the taxpayers on the hook, or is the government's position that the AgaCon is merely an Airbnb?
Honourable Government House Leader.
This government was elected on a plan to grow the economy, to support middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it. That's exactly why we lowered taxes on middle-class Canadians by increasing taxes on the wealthiest 1% of Canadians. Irrespective of the Prime Minister's schedule or planned events, the Prime Minister must always be prepared to carry out his official duties. And that's why he's always given the necessary resources, regardless of when he's traveling, whether for personal or business reasons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rosemont La Petite Patrie.
Island was an all-exclusive. Les gens sont tannés.
People are fed up with seeing the rich stash their money in Barbados or the Cayman Islands. If the government were serious about tax havens, government revenues would be up by $8 billion at least. That would cover universal free university or pharmacare. For the NDP, getting our money back is a priority. The Liberals voted for our motion, but haven't done a thing about it since. Is that the old Liberal trick? You present an attractive image and then help out your millionaire cronies. The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to note that my colleague opposite, the member opposite, is coordinating his ways of doing things with us. In the last budget, we invested millions in cracking down on tax evasion and tax havens. Last year, we recovered $13 billion with the $444 million we invested. We're going to continue working on that. Thank you very much.
West.
Mr. Speaker, last week reports were released that CIBC is cutting 130 Canadian jobs and outsourcing them to India in a move to save money. This comes from a bank that made $1.4 billion in profits last year. Will the minister agree with me that this is completely unacceptable when so many Canadians are still looking for work with a budget with investments that are ringing hollow for many? What is this government doing to create jobs in Canada?
Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we presented a budget that focused on Canadians, that focused on skills and innovation to create opportunities and to create jobs. This is to build on the first successful budget that has really shown a clear indication that jobs are getting better. The job market is getting better in Canada. Over 250,000 jobs have been created over the last 7 months. But in particular, this budget is going to focus on additional opportunities built on the past, which is about creating jobs and opportunities. And I'm confident that we'll continue to see positive trends going forward in the economy, in trade, in the retail sector, and in the job market.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, when the defense minister was in Iraq in 2015, he said, and I quote, "I haven't had one discussion about the CF-18s." However, an email from Global Affairs states that at a December 2015 meeting, the Iraqi defense minister pleaded with the Liberal government to reconsider withdrawing Canada's fighter jets on numerous occasions. Mr. Speaker, how can the defense minister blatantly ignore the requests of the Iraqi government and then turn around and knowingly mislead Canadians about it?
The Minister of National Defense.
We revamped our mission in Iraq, and whenever we send troops on operation, our government and myself take it very seriously. That's why I spent 2 separate trips going into the region, talking to our coalition partners, talking to the regional leadership there, to making sure that we have a plan that's actually going to have an impact, Mr. Speaker. And that's the plan that we had, making sure that we have the right troops on the ground, the right intelligence, Mr. Speaker. And the results are showing now that work that's happening on the ground now of defeating ISIS in Mosul is happening, and that's the plan that we had, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
The honourable member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the minister implies that when the Liberals announced the withdrawal of our CF-18s from Iraq, it was in response to an urgent request from our allies. But a heavily censored report from Foreign Affairs indicates that the Iraqi defense minister was very concerned about the decision and repeatedly asked Canada to reconsider it. The Iraqi government's reaction, in an official Government of Canada document, is a significant departure from the minister's version of events. Who's telling the truth? The defense minister or officials at Foreign Affairs?
Mr. Speaker, I have numerous discussions with my coalition partners and the Iraqi leadership, and including the Peshmerga as well, to get a good understanding of what's happening on the ground, to look at what we needed to do in the future, Mr. Speaker, and that's exactly what we have done. Put a plan in place that's actually going to provide value to the coalition, and Mr. Speaker, and that's the results that we're having right now. And we will continue to be a responsible partner to any coalition that we belong to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister isn't listening to our coalition partners. You know, nobody can believe him anymore. Let me just read a direct quote from the foreign minister of the Kurdish regional government from November 2015, who said, "We'd like to tell Canada that the airstrikes have been effective. They have saved lives. They have destroyed the enemy. And if it were for us to decide, we request that that continue." Only in the defense minister's fairy tale land of alternative facts could this be interpreted as support. Why is the defense minister blatantly misleading Canadians yet again?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the member opposite, when it comes to being a good coalition partner, you have to talk to the coalition, look at what the situation on the ground, to be able to actually have understand what the needs are. They ask for intelligence and making sure that we had the right type of trainers, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to be able to also respond to the member opposite, saying that this is the reason why we're having impact on the ground. This is the reason we're having the good results in the Mosul operation, because of the great work that we have done on the ground and the right intelligence that we put on the ground, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Now, member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the question today was not whether they're doing a good job in the field, our forces, but the question is whether the Iraqis pleaded with us to keep our CF-18s, yes or no. The Iraqis say one thing, the defense minister says another. Who's telling the truth?
Like I said, I had many discussions with the previous Minister of Defense from Iraq and the current one as well. We spoke to the coalition partners and also taken a regional approach, Mr. Speaker, because that's what you need to do, to making sure that to be a responsible coalition partner, and I've worked in the coalitions before, you need to be able to provide the right resources at the right time, Mr. Speaker, and that's exactly what we have done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, when we first heard the expression Canada's back, we didn't realize that it also meant Canada is going backwards. Because when it comes to international aid, that's exactly what's happening. Instead of being among the leading countries who are investing 0.7% of their GDP to fight extreme poverty, the finance minister is plunging us into an age of austerity to the refrain of do more with less. Does the Minister of International Development approve of her colleague's words, or will she fight for more funding? The Honourable Minister of International Development. Mr. Speaker, we undertook wide consultations last year, and our partners asked us for three things: leadership, political will, and funding. Leadership, we've proved that on a number of occasions. Look at, for example, the World Fund. We've worked with partners to accumulate $13 billion to end AIDS and tuberculosis and malaria. They've asked for good policy. $650 million have been invested for sexual and maternal health, and we've been congratulated around the world. And funding, yes, we are showing leadership when it comes to innovative funding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Given the escalating human rights and humanitarian crisis in Iraq and Syria and the growing famine in Africa, it's hard to imagine how this government's going to provide leadership with no new humanitarian funding in their budget. Last Friday, the Liberals quietly announced in press release that our mission in Iraq would be extended in a way that draws Canadian forces further into combat. Had Canadians been asked, many would have called for a larger and more urgent focus on humanitarian assistance and stabilization efforts rather than on new contributions to combat operations. Will the minister commit to debate and a vote here in this House before extending our mission in Iraq beyond June 30th?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated earlier, making sure that we have the right information and the situation on the grounds before we make a decision. That's the reason why we made a decision to extend the mission 3 months, to making sure that we have the right information, to have good discussions with our coalition partners, and allow us to make an appropriate plan so that we can continue to have a good impact on the ground as we've done in the past. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, today is National Family Caregiver Day. Caregivers deserve great recognition for their devotion to helping sick and dying loved ones. Budget 2017 contains new measures to support those who sometimes have to leave their jobs to care for family members. Could the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development please inform this House about the new program for family caregivers? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank and congratulate the member for Vimy for her work to help family caregivers. We are happy to respect our commitment to those who are helping family members by offering more inclusive and flexible benefits. It will soon be easier for Canadians to leave their jobs to take care of family members with health problems. These improvements will offer financial support to caregivers and protect their jobs in these difficult moments. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that I can count on the support of all members when these changes will be put forward.
Carlton. The salary for Canada Post CEO is set out in a cabinet order at $523,000 a year. Yet Bombardier executives will earn 10 times that amount each in current and deferred compensation, just as the Prime Minister hands them $400 million tax dollars.
Did what?
If these executives had earned the same amount as the Canada Post CEO, the company would have saved enough money to hire over 500 middle-class Canadians. Why didn't the government require them to do that before handing over such a big chunk of change?
Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the investment that we made, the repayable contribution of $372.5 million will help secure 1,300 good quality jobs and will help position the aerospace sector to create new technologies, new solutions, so we create additional jobs as well. And this investment was not only about one company, but it was about a supplier base to help the small businesses that support the aerospace sector. We will continue to support the aerospace sector. It's important to our national economy. It creates good quality jobs, and we will always defend the sector, Mr. Speaker.
For Carlton.
Mr. Speaker, the company's actually laying off jobs after it received taxpayers' money. In fact, these 6 executives will earn more than the average 600 Canadians. Shocking. That's what they meant, I guess, when they said they were going to help the middle class and those working to join it. This budget forces middle-class taxpayers to pay higher taxes for groceries and gas, for beer and bus passes, for almost everything, while the wealthiest 1% make off like bandits. Mr. Speaker, will they finally admit that their whole middle-class agenda was a fraud?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind the member opposite that it is this government that has lowered taxes for 9 million Canadians, and we've increased taxes for the wealthiest 1%, Mr. Speaker. We have also introduced the Canada Child Benefit Program that has lifted hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. We've also increased the Guaranteed Income Supplement by 10%, Mr. Speaker. That certainly will help many Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased with our plan. It will continue to be going ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, you know, when the budget was brought forward, the government was very proud to say that it was a green and feminist budget. And yet, Mr. Speaker, by cutting the public transit tax credit, a tax credit that helped Canadian workers, well, they're directly attacking the green policies put in place by the Conservative government, and they're also attacking some of the most vulnerable Canadians. The Department of Finance, I know this might shock you, but this is the truth. Mr. Speaker, we've also learned that 53% of those who benefited from the tax credit were women. So why is the government attacking green policies and women? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for his question. Our government will devote $20 billion to public transit in the coming years. This will offer... The public transit tax credit helped the wealthiest Canadians, but offered little tax relief to low-income Canadians. Our investments in public transit will transform the way Canadians live and go to work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Well, hang on, Mr. Speaker. What did we just hear? green tax credits for public transit helping the wealthiest? Well, you know what, Mr. Speaker, I've never seen a Bombardier leader take the bus to go to work. So Mr. Speaker, could the government finally recognize that by that taking away this excellent credit for public transit is an incredible mistake? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Once again, Mr. Speaker, our government cut taxes for the middle class and raised taxes on the wealthiest 1%. Mr. Speaker, it's our government that introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which has helped thousands of children get out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to make investments to help the middle class, and we are moving forward. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the clock is ticking and we still have no plan B for softwood lumber. The budget is a missed opportunity to defend the industry and workers. By April 24th, an additional tax of up to 30% will be applied on Canadian wood sold in the United States. The UMQ is now calling for loan guarantees to help the sector through the tough times we're going to see. We need to act before the industry is brought to its knees and thousands of jobs are lost. Will the government finally act and stop just talking? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
I appreciate the question from my honourable colleague, and I want to reassure her that the Government of Canada has been in very close conversation and cooperation with all of the regions who would be affected by that action. And I am particularly impressed with the cooperative spirit that has been displayed by the Quebec government in this matter, because the government understands that working cooperatively with Canada is the best way that we can protect very important jobs in the forestry sector.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, the military ombudsman has reported that DNT retaliates when reports critical of the department are released by his office. DND has also called the ombudsman low influence, low interest in initiatives to fix the failed transition process. It's unacceptable for a department to interfere with the work or be dismissive of the ombudsman. Will the minister honour the ombudsman's request and make the office independent from the department so he reports directly to Parliament to fulfil the mandate and effectively serve the military and veteran community?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the Ombudsman Office does really good work for our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces. In fact, I mean, with him on a number of occasions based on his report. A lot of his recommendations that we took into place, especially when it came to the Valcartier cadet incident from 1974, some of the great work that also been done regarding the transition. We have incorporated a lot of those recommendations into the defense policy, and the independence of his office is very important for them to do the work, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, Jennifer Stebbing has been named a director at the Hamilton Port Authority. She's a failed Liberal candidate and has already said she's going to run again. She's also a self-described politico and outdoor enthusiast. And while that might make her a wonderful Liberal candidate, it's not clear how she meets the job requirements as posted on Transport Canada's website. Will the Minister of Transport tell us what accepted stature within the transportation industry this failed Liberal candidate has?
Mr. Transport.
Of course, our government has adopted an open and a transparent process that aims to recognize that it's important to find the best qualified people to ensure.
Order. I had no trouble hearing the question. I'd like to hear the answer. I'm sure members would like to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister of Transport has the floor.
An open, transparent system that identifies the best people and also takes into account diversity and gender balance. That is what we have achieved. On her specific question concerning Jennifer Stebbing, she has vast legal experience serving in leadership positions in the Halton Law Association, the Hamilton-Halton Women's Lawyers Association, and the Hamilton Taxpayers Coalition, for which she is president. We're very pleased.
Mr. Speaker, how can
anyone believe the Liberals are being open and transparent in filling appointments. Liberal appointments are like a fixed backroom poker game, and on this Western Hemisphere Ports Day, Jennifer Stebbing and Darren Deschamps seem to know how to play the game after being appointed to port authorities. Stebbing ran for the Liberals in the last election while Deschamps played his cards right, pushing over $5,000 into the Liberal Party pot. Mr. Speaker, why don't the Liberals just come clean and admit only donors are getting appointments?
The Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, of course, nothing can be further from the truth. We are adopting a system that identifies the best and the most qualified people. It is an open and transparent process, and I'm glad to say lots of very well-qualified people are applying for it. We look at it from that point of view, open, transparent. We're trying to achieve diversity and gender balance. I think we're doing a great job if you look at the people who've been appointed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I ask the member for Brant to restrain himself so we can hear his friend, the honourable member for Barrie Innisfil, who has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the ante on Liberal patronage keeps going up. Jim Spatz, a developer who paid $1,500 to attend a Liberal Cash for Access fundraiser with the finance minister, is also in on the game. Last week, he had the winning hand and was reappointed to a 3-year term as a director of the Halifax Port Authority. The Liberals' press release said the new appointments follow the Government Canada's open and transparent appointment process. And, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to appointments, shouldn't the Liberals be using the disclaimer, only donors to the Liberal Party need apply?
Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I love this opportunity to talk about Jim Spatz. Jim Spatz has vast community experience serving, for example, NDP Premier Darrell Dexter's Advisory Council on the Economy, and also for 5 years he was chair of the board of Dalhousie University. He was voted an outstanding businessman in Halifax, and we're very honored and lucky to have him on the Port of Halifax Authority. Thank you.
The honourable member for Central Nova.
Mr. Speaker, we all know how vital the transportation system is to Canada's economy. Continually improving our transportation system is crucial. Can the Minister please update Canadians on how investments in Budget 2017 will strengthen communities like the ones I represent and help Central Nova, help Canadians move faster across our country and get goods to markets more efficiently?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
I'd like to thank the member from Central Nova for his important question. Of course, trade corridors are vital to Canada's economy and a very important part of our mandate. In fact, in the 2017 budget, $2 billion was identified for a National Trade Corridors Fund, and we're using that money for prioritizing important transportation investments that will minimize congestion and remove bottlenecks in our vital trade corridors. We want our trucks and our trains and our planes and our ships to move across this country as efficiently as possible and out to world markets. That's what we're doing.
Honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Today, the Liberals are allowing more and more criminals to go free because they are incapable of making judicial appointments. While we were in office, in 1 month, we appointed more than they have appointed in 16 months, Mr. Speaker, and those appointments were inclusive of Canadian society. What is it about this government that makes them so comfortable with endangering the lives of Canadians by allowing dangerous offenders to go free? Could they answer that?
Order. I encourage the honourable member for Scarborough Agincourt to restrain himself. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to stand up to speak about the new judicial appointments process that our government has instituted to ensure openness and transparency. I am pleased to talk about the new judicial advisory committees that we've put in place to ensure that our judiciary reflects the diversity of Canada, that are merit-based. We have made substantive appointments to the Superior Courts, and we will continue to do so.
Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
The Liberal budget removed an important transit rebate. In Nanaimo Ladysmith, coastal ferry users were greatly aided by this tax credit. Now, given that the BC Liberals have hiked coastal ferry fares at over 10 times the rate of inflation, the federal rebate cut the cost of daily ferry travel and helped make ends meet. Now, for a government that talks a lot about how it supports the middle class, this move doesn't make any sense. Will the Liberals reconsider and restore this important rebate?
Bravo. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
$20.1 billion in funding to provinces and territories to improve public transit. This funding will make it possible for Canadian communities to build a new urban transit network and service extensions. The public transit tax credit delivered the highest benefits to the wealthiest while providing little or no relief to the lowest income Canadians. That is why that we are making the investments in transit that will transform the way Canadians live, move, and go to work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Social justice. Honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that transit is very important and critical to a high quality of life, getting to work on time, getting home after work to meet your family. In British Columbia, many communities rely on ferries in order to do this kind of communication and transportation. Can the Minister of Infrastructure tell us how and what the government is doing to increase connectivity and safety for ferry users?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member, all of our BC MPs, including the members of the NDP, for advocating changes to new Building Canada Fund to include ferry infrastructure, which was excluded by the Harper government from funding. Working with the province of British Columbia, we are funding $201 million toward 3 ferry projects. Once completed, these projects will increase safety, make it fast and easier for passengers to travel, and promote tourism and economic growth in British Columbia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the criteria and objectives of the Canada 150 Fund were changed in the summer of 2016. In Part G of the General Application Form, Question 50 asks the applicant to give a summary of the project and explain how it will meet the objectives mentioned previously in 20 lines or less. The form changed as if by magic in summer of 2016, discrediting in one fell swoop hundreds of projects. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister confirm that the criteria and objectives of the Canada 150 Fund were changed in the summer of 2016? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are very enthusiastic about the celebrations for Canada 150. We have received thousands of applications of a value of about $2 billion for a fund of about $200 million. We want to see projects and celebrations across the country which meet 4 themes. Members of this House are aware of these: youth, diversity, Indigenous people, and the environment. And our goal is to ensure fair regional distribution, and it will be a great year for all. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the greed of Bombardier's leadership is generating fury in Quebec. They're cutting jobs, they're begging for subsidies everywhere, and then they give themselves 48% raises. That's more than cynical, it's indecent. Quebecers are furious, and they're damn right. Will the Prime Minister stand with Quebecers and call on Bombardier's leadership to give back their 2016 raises? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I understand the concerns of Canadians and Quebecers. At the same time, it's very important that our government support the aerospace sector. That is why we invested $372 million for research and development. This investment will create jobs and help small and medium-sized businesses, Mr. Speaker. This is a priority for our government, and we will continue to work hard for the aerospace sector. The Honourable Member from Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, once again, Ottawa's negligence and laissez-faire attitude is doing damage to Quebec's interests. Once again, Ottawa is demonstrating why Quebec would be much better served if it was independent. On February 17th, a Rio Tinto ship was imprisoned in the ice for 2 days because of the cruel lack of icebreakers on the St. Lawrence River. There are 5, and there should be 11. Will the government stop hurting Quebec's international reputation and listen to the government of Quebec, which is calling for twice as many icebreakers on the St. Lawrence? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Canadian Coast Guard icebreakers ensure the safety of our water and the accessibility of our water for transport ships. The Coast Guard is working in close cooperation with the maritime industry, the United States, and the board that manages the St. Lawrence to meet the needs of our clients. And with this fleet, Mr. Speaker, of 17 icebreakers, the Coast Guard is offering essential services on the Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence, and in the Atlantic and the Arctic. And, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to ensure that this navigable water is navigable at all times.
Pursuant to a point of order, the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we know, we're debating in this place changing our standing orders, but I would like to refer, for my point of order, to our existing rules, Rule 16, Sub 2, and Standing Order 18. The combined effect of these two standing orders is that interrupting a member or speaking disrespectfully of them violates the rules of this place. The amount of heckling, which I know many members say they'd like to curtail, is getting completely out of hand from my little corner. The Liberals no longer heckle, but the Conservatives and the New Democrats are heckling fiercely, and it is a violation of this place.
Thank the honourable member for raising this point of order and referring to standing orders. And I remind members that those are the rules. She's quite correct. Those are the standing orders, and I ask members to abide by them on all sides. Members will know that I, in fact, called upon members from at least two sides today to restrain themselves. But I would like it if everyone did it all the time. So as I was saying, it being 3:06 now, pursuant to order made Monday,
A point of order, the honourable member for Bourassa. Yes, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I would refer back to my statement that I made earlier about 5 candidates, and I mentioned that there were 3 women. However, there are 4, and I want to apologize, and with the indulgence of the House, I would like to have that corrected in the record. I thank the honourable member for Bourassa for the correction.
3:07. Pursuant to order made Monday, April 3rd, 2017, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded vision on the amendment of Mr. Rankin to the motion at third reading of Bill C-22. Call in the members.